me start with you. It just is heartbreaking. It's agonizing. You can't say anything to make it any better. What is the answer?
Well, first of all, this is not as rare as people might think. There is a Virginia Tech, so to speak, 30 to 34 Americans dying every day due to gun violence. And so what gets me most frustrated, I guess, is that we all agree in America. In fact, if you look at gun owners, you know, I work with a coalition of mayors called the Coalition Against Illegal Guns. We use a Republican pollster to poll gun owners and NRA members, and you get from 70 to 90%, depending on the common sense issue we could do that would make our country safer. And so let me give you one example. About 40%, roughly 40% of the guns sold in America are sold in what's called a secondary market. In other words, private sales, where there's no federal registration at all, where people with criminal backgrounds, where you could get somebody on the terrorist no-fly list who can't get on a plane, but they could go to many of these secondary markets and buy weapons. Overwhelmingly, 84% of gun owners in America, 82% of gun owners in America, 74% of NRA members believe that should change. Changing that alone, ending those secondary markets makes a difference. And I'll give you the specific example how. 1 out of 2 women that are murdered with a gun are murdered by what's called an intimate, somebody they know well. In states that have eliminated that secondary market and don't allow people to trade in private gun sales or gun shows and the like, that number drops by 40%, because those people with the intention to do wrong or who have just a misdemeanor domestic violence abuse can't buy guns in America. So changing these laws makes people safer.
Christian Amanpour, in the end, it's about the guns, because without the guns, you don't have the shooting. This particular weapon, the AR-15 assault rifle, has been used now in the last 3 mass shootings. In Aurora, in the movie theatre, in the Oregon shopping mall, and now here in an elementary school. It is a military weapon. You've been in war zones all over the world. It is as near to an M16 machine gun assault rifle as you can get, isn't it?
You know, it is, and I can visualize the state of affairs in those classrooms in Sandy Hook, because I've seen that on the battlefield in Sarajevo, in Somalia, what's going on in Syria right now. And it is about those particular weapons. And I look out and I realize that 2 years ago, I conducted a town hall just like this in the aftermath of the shooting of Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords and the killing of those people around her in Tucson. Some of the same people who were there are here today, victims, families, all people crying out for at the very least, a dialogue, a sensible, rational conversation, a national discussion where we're not afraid to call it like it is. And that means to bring everybody to the table. And that also means, Piers, and I think everybody here would probably agree, it means cutting down the straw men that are raised up when people get freaked out about this conversation. This is not about taking people's guns away. It's not about taking the hunter's gun, not about the sporting gun, not about the private protection gun. It is about sensible gun laws, semi-automatic weapons, the kinds of things that make killing industrial strength. And I'll tell you, there is cause and effect. There are other countries which have faced similar such massacres, and they've taken procedures and it's worked. Our country, England, in Scotland, you know, in 1996, Dunblane, children the same age as the children at Sandy Hook.
16 children, same
16,
thing.
6- and 7-year-olds
National
killed.
handgun ban, and it was incredibly effective. Australia, the same thing. Now, John Lott, your answer is more guns makes America safe, even though, if you look at the statistics, you have 300 million in circulation, and you have the worst gun murder rate of any of the wealthy countries of the world by a massive multiple. How do you justify the claim more guns makes more safe people in America? I don't know. I don't get it.
Every place that guns have been banned, murder rates have gone up. You cannot point to one place, whether it's Chicago or whether it's D.C. or whether it's been England or whether it's been Jamaica or Ireland.
But that's a complete lie.
It is not.
It's a complete lie. In Britain, the gun murder rate in Britain is 35 a year average. You need to stop repeating a blatant lie about what happens in other countries.
Look, sir.
35 gun murders a year. No, you're not going to get away with this. You lied about it the other day. 35 gun murders a year in Britain, 11 to 12,000 in America. Stop lying. Because what you say
you don't even understand simple math.
What you say
Can I
drives
explain
Americans to go and buy weapons
there's a difference
to defend
between
themselves.
saying something's low and that it increased. What I say is there's lots of reasons why murder rates differ across countries, but when a ban is put on, it still may end up being lower than someplace else, but it went up.
Deepak, what does it say about America that even after 20 young children between 6 and 7 years old are murdered with these assault weapons, you still have people here who say we cannot take them off the streets, there's nothing we can do, and actually they know that when they fill people with fear, in the last 5 days, sales of these particular AR-15s have rocketed in America as Americans race to defend themselves and make themselves safer.
So Piers,
what is going to change this culture?
This is what's going to change it. First of all, there are three things that have been pointed out very clearly. One is the easy availability of literally weapons of mass destruction. That's all you can call them, assault weapons. The second is mental health. And the third, which you're asking me about, is a culture of violence. Because the same gun laws are there in Canada right now, in Switzerland, per capita, and yet you don't have the same incidents. We have a culture which has somehow accepted the psychosis of our collective consciousness as normal. We call it normal. This happens every 2 months. And so
here's the thing. Anyone that says they want this particular assault weapon, this murder weapon, this military-grade rifle, anyone that says that they want that removed,
I would question their sanity.
But they're accused, I've been accused of this, of being unpatriotic to America, anti-American. I've been accused of not understanding an American's right to bear arms under the Second Amendment. This has got nothing to do with it. I don't mind an American having a firearm at home to defend themselves. This is a weapon of mass slaughter.
When they passed the Second Amendment, they had muskets. It took 20 minutes to load one, and half the time you missed. Okay, the Second Amendment didn't take into account assault weapons, the fact that you could buy them through the secondary market, or you can load up on ammunition through the internet. So, you know, we're living in a culture that accepts this as normal and what we need. Forget right now trying to prove him wrong, because he's only going to get more belligerent if you prove him wrong. What we need to ask ourselves is, what's the solution? And the solution is this kind of town hall meetings across the country, and then people taking action and going to their legislators and say we want these laws changed. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Well, Tramadol will come to you after the break. So remember, you can follow and send a question on Twitter if you use our hashtag Guns in America. We're getting a huge reaction, as you can imagine. Not everyone agrees with what I believe about this, but many do too. We'll talk after the break.
Going to do something. I mean, that's obvious. And people want to get stuff before a ban on whatever comes in. Probably magazines. People get scared.
In the wake of the Newtown tragedy, gun sales are soaring across America, especially for weapons like the AR-15 that was used. Back with my studio guests. Dr. Amador, this is really the nub of this, which is that people get driven to believe that they have to protect themselves, that's why they have to be armed. And every time one of these shootings happens, more and more Americans go and buy more guns, and so it proliferates. But as she says, I mean, people should be trained for these use, right?
Well, of course. And you know, what you're making me think about that I have not heard people talking about are CIT police officers, crisis intervention team trained police officers who know about mental illness, who know how to deal with people who have serious mental illness. The problem is not mental illness. You know, President Obama, Tom Ridge talked about our mental health care system failing us, and that's the problem. It's not the mentally ill people who are dangerous. It's the system that's leaving them to fall through the cracks, not get into treatment, not evaluate and build relationships with them so that we can keep them from acts such as this.
Okay, because you were very spirited this morning defending an American's right to own weapons, but I can't understand. You're a smart guy. I watch you most mornings talking about all sorts of stuff. Why does any American need one of these AR-15s? What possible protection can that kind of thing offer them? It's a military rifle.
You know, Piers, I don't think that the conversation when it comes to me is with the burden upon me to say why I might need that weapon. What I need you to do is explain how you've made the country safer by proposing to ban that weapon. Now, listen, I understand the sense that we have at moments like this that we must do something. We have to solve this problem. But what I would suggest is make sure you're actually going to accomplish that. And here's what I would suggest to you. Your personal crusade, Piers, to ban assault rifles. I am not convinced that you will accomplish anything significant, and I will just give you 3 quick reasons. One, Adam Lanza's gun in this incident would not have been banned under the Connecticut assault weapons ban, and it wouldn't have under the federal one we had in place for 10 years.
I find that ridiculous.
Well, and what I'd say is the federal ban that we did have for 10 years didn't drop national violence. But finally, I think this is the most important one.
Well, it did, actually, by 6.7%.
This is the most important one.
But it did. I mean, it's demonstrably it did.
I haven't seen that stat, Piers.
Academic study you can point to.
If I could, because this is the most important point, Piers. A guy like Adam Lanza, he premeditates these things. He plans it, and he is a very determined criminal to do something horrific.
So make it difficult for him to get the tools.
What law do you propose that would have stopped him?
Here's what I think. You've got to try. Right, I've been in this country for the last 6-7 years watching shooting massacre after shooting. No, but it's not good enough to say we don't do anything. When does the slaughter stop? When do you look at these victims
you to
behind
prove
you,
your case?
Parents and people who survive these things?
What does an assault gun do for recreation? What does it do for hunting? What does it do for self-defense?
Why don't you tell me, Mr. Locke?
Okay, it's a semi-automatic gun that looks like a military weapon. If you want to ban all semi-automatic guns, fine, let's talk about that. Most guns owned by Americans are semi-automatic.
What is the purpose of an AR-15?
It's like a hunting rifle that cosmetically on the outside looks like a military weapon. But look,
how many bullets can it fire a second?
There's a reason.
How many bullets can it fire a second?
I want to answer
my question.
No, I'm answering your first question before you answer another one.
How many bullets?
I'm going to answer your first question.
Wait, you will not downgrade what these weapons do.
Sir, you wouldn't let me finish before.
Answer this simple question.
The point of a semi-automatic weapon.
How many bullets does the AR-15 fire a second?
The point of
it's been used in your last 3 mass shootings.
You have to let me finish.
Answer the question.
You never let me finish.
Do you want to answer or not?
I'm going to answer your first question, and then I'll answer your second question. The first question, the reason why you have a semi-automatic weapon is because, take the alternative. If I were to have a bolt-action rifle where I have to manually load it, and let's say I have 2 criminals coming at me, what do? I can fire 1 bullet, and then it's going to take me a while to go and fire the second one. It may be too late. What happens if I fire a shot and I miss? What happens if I fire a shot?
How many bullets does it fire a second?
The point is...
Can you answer the question or not?
You will lose lives. People need to be able to protect themselves. The police can't be there all the time, and if you want them to have to fire a bolt-action rifle so that it's going to take...
Are you going to answer my question?
I was trying to answer your first question.
It's a very simple question. How many bullets can an AR-15 fire in 1 second? Do you know?
Well, I think your estimate's high.
Actually, it's not.
4 or 5.
It can be 4. Actually, I've spoken to many experts today.
Okay.
It can fire 4 to 6 bullets a second. It can fire 100 in a minute. That can wipe out, as we saw, 20 children in a matter of seconds, if not 2 minutes.
It's a characteristic of all semi-automatic guns.
You don't want to say the answer to those questions because you want people to think they're just harmless old hunting rifles.
I didn't say that.
And that's why they sell so fast.
Look,
and it is a disgrace that you won't answer those questions.
I already said at the beginning it makes it easier,
break.
but you have to recognize it.
No, you have to answer the questions truthfully to an American audience. That's what you have to do. When we come back, the survivors of gun violence tell me about the impact of these terrible, terrible weapons on their lives and the people that were taken from them. We're bringing survivors now from other mass shootings as well as the family members of victims. First, Cory Booker. I find this an almost impossible debate to stay calm about because I keep thinking of these kids in Sandy Hook and the latest families devastated and so on. I just interviewed one of the fathers and it makes me so angry. And I just don't understand why there's just this unanimity about getting rid of these things. What is the middle ground here? If you were trying to debate this in a more rational way than I appear capable of, what would you do?
But I understand your passion, having stood on too many street corners, seen too many bodies, seen the kind of weapons we're pulling off the streets. But I really want to pull this debate back to the pragmatic center where we can move this country forward and make it a lot safer. There's only been 1 shooting in my city that we've been able to find who was done with somebody who acquired a gun legally. The overwhelming majority of people murdered in the nation every day are done because criminals and people who are mentally not qualified to buy guns can get guns. So to improve a system where we can do background checks on people, which universally, as I said earlier,
it's key.
But one more mental health point I want to make is there are states now that There's 19 states almost where there's less than 100 people that they've registered in the NICS system as mentally incapable because states aren't even turning over this information. If we just shared information, we could do a much better job as a country keeping guns out of the hands of criminals.
Let me go to Amardeep Kalika. You've lost your father in the Sikh temple shooting. You've heard this debate. It is very emotive, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to those that don't hold my view. I just feel strongly about it. What is your reaction? You're a gun owner, I believe.
Yeah, I have a gun. I was in Army ROTC. I worked with the M16, the SAW, everything. And those guns aren't meant for protection. They're meant for annihilation. To deter somebody is quite easy. You could deter somebody with a knife like my father did. He wrestled this guy with a knife, a butter knife, and that guy immediately left the building. To have gun after gun, it's becoming a black and white issue. People want to take the argument that way so that they could have a hollow fight. So we need to get a little bit more complex and in the middle.
If you could pass the mic down to Daniel here. Daniel, you and Roxana were both involved in the Tucson tragedy where Gabrielle Givens nearly died. You were there. What do you think of this debate?
You know, there's 3 points that I think need to be raised. All due respect to the folks who are talking about having more guns. Having more guns does not solve the problem. Having people that are trained like the policewoman who stopped, who didn't even call in SWAT because she was so trained, that's the difference. In Tucson, we saw people who would have come up and said, you know, I had a gun, but I didn't feel like it would have been a good idea to use it. There was so much chaos and so much confusion. You know, when these people come in and they have planned this for a significant amount of time, they are steady and they are ready to do this deed. But the people in the area are completely in a panic. People are in shock because this is not something that you expect.
Do you want to see these assault rifles just gone?
You know, I think getting rid of the assault weapons, you know, it's not a perfect bill, but we will never be able to legislate against evil, but we can close some of these loopholes to make sure we're taking some of these weapons off the street. But the other thing that I think is really important to raise is the reason why Jared Loughner only killed 6 people, the reason why only 13 were injured was because he had to reload. He had an semi-automatic weapon, but he had an extended clip that had 30 rounds. The time that he stopped was when someone grabbed that clip when he was trying to reload.
Laurie, your daughter survived. She was shot at Virginia Tech. Here's the thing. I love America, and I love Americans. I really do. I've been very lucky here, worked here for 7 years. I live here. And I respect the Second Amendment. But when I hear this debate, my heart just sinks that there are still so many people that just don't see a reason to ban these high-powered assault weapons. What is your view?
I absolutely believe in banning those weapons. I believe in banning semi-automatic weapons. The killer at Virginia Tech used 30-round high-capacity magazine clips on his guns and untold carnage and in those classrooms. And the Virginia Tech families, almost all of them, I speak for all of them, would like to do a better job with background checks. Tom Ridge served on the panel. The panel concluded at the end of their investigation that all gun sales should go through a background check. Can
you pass the mic very quickly to Roxana, because I wanted to get the last word to you. You lost your daughter, Christina. We all remember. Terrible story. She was 9 years old. What is your view?
My view is that all military-style weapons should be banned, period, and background checks for all. You know, my husband is a gun owner. He likes to hunt. But I think every weapon should have a background check, and these military-style weapons that you spoke of earlier, there's no reason why civilians should have them. The slaughter has to stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, and we'll be right back.